Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for your time. It's 7:15 in Ireland and in England as well. So thank you very much for being here with us. So we are today after some emails, some requests from Irish, British, Brazilians, Italians, and Spaniards asking for Adam again. So here it is. Adam Osborne with us today. I'm pretty sure he's going to give us a wonderful talk.
I'll try to.
Yeah, well, he will. Yeah, he will. Yeah. Hello. And now with Don here. Hello, America. Good to see you. Good to see you all. I'm open the bridge between Ireland and the USA. So I'm very pleased to introduce you again, Adam Osborne. He's from the British Spiritist movement. He's going to give more details about his group at the end of his talk. If you are interested, he is more than glad to talk to you, to guide you in the Spiritism studies. So it's a very, it's an excellent opportunity to learn, to study, to see things how it is in Europe, especially in the UK with Adam. So today's topic is understanding God. It's a very tricky topic and a very wide topic. I'm curious to see how Adam format this in an hour presentation. I'm dying to see it. Yeah. So, but before we start, I would like to invite everyone to do the initial prayer. So, I ask you to sit comfortably, if you can. If you are driving, listen us through the Kardec radio. Please pay attention to the road, but I hope you're listening our comments. And we ask you to raise up your thoughts towards the Master Jesus, asking him to send over us his blessings, filling us up with his love. May the good spirits who look after the Spiritist movement in Europe, in the UK, in Ireland, in the USA, be with Adam today, guiding him to say what needs to be said, but at the same time reaching out all the spirit centers around the world, giving to everyone courage and the willing to fight against those who doesn't want to make this wonderful mission progress. May this prayer reach our brothers and sisters who needs any kind of help, even though they are incarnated or discarnated. So be it. Amen. Okay, my friend.
Okay.
So I'm uploading your deck here. It's
Great.
on your left hand side. I'm on the background, so if you have any problems, let me know. I wish you break a leg.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. And it's great to be back again with everyone, with all our friends here in Ireland, in the UK, and indeed around the world. So today I wanted to talk to you about God. And like Stephen said, it can be difficult to talk about this within the space of just 1 hour, but we'll see how it goes. So this talk itself has come about because there are many people who study Spiritism and indeed belong to different religions who have a problem with God, who find it difficult to make a connection, who only see through dogmatic religious ideas, through a view of a punishing God. And so this isn't going to be an in-depth talk, but more just a stepping stone to help us to demystify, to help us to understand what this thing called God is, what God is. So, what is God? Let's look first at our personal views. So, how do we feel when we hear this name, when we see this name written down, this word God? How do we feel? What's the first thought that comes to your mind? What does it mean to you? Deep down. Perhaps it's positive, perhaps it's a negative feeling that you have. But God is, and has been, one of the mysteries that humans have tried to look into and find answers to for a long time, for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. And through the various stories, folklore from ancient cultures, ancient religions, we've built an image, a structure, a purpose of God. But how well do we understand that? So here's a quick question. You don't need to give any answers to this, but do we all have the same idea, the same vision, the same belief in God, or even believe in the same God? Well, the basic answer to that is no, we don't. We don't have the same views, we don't have the same belief, and we don't all believe in the same kind of God. But here is a question which I want everyone who's watching, so all those here on Facebook, on YouTube, no matter where you're watching, I want you to participate now with your answers. So bring up the chat, and I want you to type in there just a number of what percentage of people around the world, do you think might believe in God in the same way as yourself? So enter 20 if you think it's 20%, 30 for 30%. And we'll come and look at any answers that anyone's given in just a couple of moments. So open up the chat, put it in, participate, so we can get your thoughts on this. But back to my previous question about, do we see God in the same way as each other? I said no. But to understand this, we need to look at a couple of basic statistics. Well, as most people should know, we have around 7.7 billion incarnate people on this planet. And we have this graph here from ourworldindata.org. And the expectation is that within the next couple of years, maybe 5 or 6 years, this is going to increase to maybe 8 billion. Within the next 15 years or so, potentially 9 billion. And so just for us to get an idea, in comparison, around 1.5 billion people were on the planet at the time of Kardec, so 160 years ago. And 2,000 years ago, there were only 200 to 300 people on the planet. Sorry, 200 to 300 million people. Correction. So we can see that over 2,000 years, we've gone from 200 to 300 million people to now being 7.7 billion people on this planet. So out of that 7.7 billion people, not many people have put any comments in yet. Let's see, there's quite a few people online now. Let's put your comments in. What percentage do you think? Raphael has already put 30%. Great. So let's keep it rolling. Everyone who's watching, put your comments in. What percentage of people do you think share the same view as you? Okay, just another moment or so. Well, to be honest, it doesn't really matter what number you put on, because on average, we will all think possibly 30%. And it doesn't necessarily line up with what the realistic thing is. So we got 30% from Rafaela, 60% from Val. And, most of the time, our view is our own personal view. And as it's our personal view, there won't be many people who will share that same personal view as us. But if we look at a bit more data, we can see a potential view of how many people may or may not share the same view as us of God. So here's a quick chart of the religions around the world, because we can't really talk about God without considering religions. So there are approximately 53% of the population of the planet, so there's 7.7 billion people, who have declared that they're from a monotheistic religion, a monotheistic faith. So they believe in the same one God that we have in the Abrahamic faith. So that's Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. So that means that 47% of the population, just over 3.6 billion people, are from other faiths, other religions, where there may be multiple deities or multiple gods, or they may even be atheists. So depending on what religion you're aligned to, the percentage of people who believe in God the same way as you may be a lot smaller than you think. And just a note that this chart itself, the details have come from general census. And although we have Spiritism itself actually highlighted on here, even though Spiritism isn't necessarily a religion, a doctrinal organized religion per se, it's listed because that's what people have said when they were asked what religion you belong to. And we can see that roughly 0.08% of the population have said that they are Spiritist. So that is actually a very small number. We obviously know that many other people align thoughts to Spiritism, but this is obviously from just an official census. But when we look at it, looking at this graph and the previous one regarding the number of incarnates, this helps us to understand why it is that not everyone around us has the same concept and belief in God that we might have. So, if you're from Christianity, then roughly, like Raphael said, 30% of the population of the planet might see God the same way as you. But because we have our own personal beliefs, our own personal concept, our own personal understanding, then it may be very different. Because we all connect to God and to spirituality in different ways. And at the end of the day, we all have our own free will. We have the right to believe in what we want and how we want. So how do we see God? Let's look at some of the different views and ideas of God in different faiths and religions. So how do we see God? On the whole, most of the gods, we have to think plural here because some religions have multiple gods, have to think that most of the gods we've communicated with, worshipped and believed in over the years, with the exception of a few, have actually been personified with human appearances and characteristics. And because of before we even had the idea of a single god, we believed in multiple gods. And the three biggest races which have influenced our personalized view, this personified view of God, has come from the Greeks, the Romans, and the Egyptians. So let's look at the ancient Egyptians quickly. So we know that they worshipped their gods through their empire, which was about 5,000 years ago, ending about 2,000 years ago. So for about 3,000 years, the Egyptians were around with their faiths and their cultures. And they had around 2,000 known deities. and people would worship many at a time. But there was actually a brief time where they believed in just one god, Aten. But that didn't last for very long, and apparently, I found this out just the other day, it was the pharaoh who is the father of King Tutankhamun who tried to instigate that idea, but it didn't hold well with everyone. But from the Egyptians, we can see that their gods were personified, they're anthropomorphic, they're the traits or emotions, or zoomorphic, animal gods. And their physical forms, the physical representation of the gods, were of the characters, so not literal appearance. Many people think that they believed that it was all the literal appearance of their gods, but it wasn't, because apparently many of these gods changed their appearance depending on their duty or even their mood. And all their gods were a mixture of male, female, hermaphrodite, and non-gendered. And an important thing to remember as well is that in the later dynasties of the Egyptian Empire, the pharaoh was actually seen as a living god, an incarnate god, mainly representing either Ra or Aten, so two main gods within the Egyptian cultures. Let's now look at the Greeks. So the Greeks also had many gods, and their gods started with what they called the primordial deities, the personifications of empty space, the earth, the sky, the night. And these gods developed into a mass of mythological beings, such as the Titans, or the Olympians, who you may have probably heard of. And of the Olympians, according to their beliefs, their chief god was Zeus, who lived on top of Mount Olympus. And we know that their gods were worshipped for about 1,000 years only. And then moving on from them, we've got the ancient Romans, and they based their cults and religions on all the other cults and religions that they absorbed. So they took on the Greek mythologies, the Egyptian religions and cults, as well as many European religions. And so all the main gods of ancient Rome were actually adapted versions of the Greek gods, with Jupiter. So we can see Jupiter on the right with his trident was the main god. And also we can see within art and things that the Roman gods actually took on very similar appearances and status as the Greek gods. Now, we talked about the pharaohs a moment ago, that in the later dynasties they saw themselves as the incarnate god. But with the Romans it was the same. So Emperor Julius Caesar, who famously loved Cleopatra, who was the last of the ancient Egyptians, she was the last of the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, he actually declared himself as a divine emperor, as a living god of Rome. And so he took that idea from Egypt into Rome, that the most powerful person of that empire should be called a god, a living god. So we also need to consider that the Hindu faith, so Hinduism, is actually a collection of many faiths. There are 33 main deities, but it's commonly accepted that there are actually 33 million gods in total. And within the Hindu faith, they actually have a trinary concept of creation, destruction, and preservation, which they represent with their gods Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And many people think that it just stops there. You've got those and then all the other gods. But actually, very importantly, they do have the concept of a supreme god, a greater force above everything else, called Brahman. And that is the power that upholds and supports everything else in the universe, and has and always will exist. Now, moving on to Buddhism. So, in Buddhism, they actually don't have a god per se. So, they don't have the idea of God, which has created the universe. And Buddhists actually believe that, everything has a start and an end. So they believe in divine beings called devas, as well as Buddha. So the various Buddhas that have been around. And none are eternal, but all live simply a very, very long time. Because for them, everything follows the cycles of birth, decay, death, and rebirth. And of course, we also have to consider the Abrahamic faiths. And here, God is seen as a singular force. So it's in Judaism and Islam, there is no specific imagery to describe the appearance of God or the use of representations of God, except for items that represent maybe the manifestations of God, the nature, all the good things that we can see. And these are seen within art, within architecture. Within Judaism, there is the view of the hand of God. It's one of the few bits of artwork, but the hand of God, which is the hand that helped to bring people out of slavery. In Islam, the name of God, Allah, is said to be written in the beauty of all things in nature, that you can look at the trees, you can open a tomato or something, and you can see the lines that represent the word Allah written there. And both Judaism and Islam, we're mentioning them because these are old faiths, do use a male pronoun for God, but that's mainly down to the aspects of human language. And of course, we have to talk about Christianity as well. So Christianity, which is the third of the Abrahamic faiths, well, it's actually the second really, but it's part, within Christianity, God is part of a Trinity. So there's this Trinity aspect of a Holy Father, a living Spirit, and an incarnate Son. And that incarnate Son is called Jesus. And we know that during early Christianity, he wasn't necessarily called the Son of God, but he was actually called God Christ or Christ God. And there's lots of archaeological evidence for this. And we think that this may be because of influences from the Roman and Greek traditions, the Roman and Egyptian traditions of having incarnate deities. And, I could easily talk more about the other faiths, such as the Nordic faiths, the Vikings, African traditions, Yoruba, but they'll be very similar to what we've already talked about with the faiths with multiple gods. And then there are other monotheistic faiths, such as Sikhism, where they believe in just one God, the main God that we follow within everything else. But as we can see, most religions, God or the different gods or goddesses are represented in human form or human-like forms. But why is that? So again, if we look at it from the monotheistic sense, the sense that is understood from the Judeo-Christian lines, which have resulted in the formation of Spiritism, we might get a good idea as to why. So as we know, within the lines of these religions, God is seen as a single God. And that classical art has many images of God as an elderly male figure on a cloud. And here we have Michelangelo's image from the Sistine Chapel, which is one of the representations of that. And in modern culture, media, theatre, there have been other representations of God as male, female, young, old, different skin colours. And I personally specifically like the representation of God by Morgan Freeman in the films Bruce Almighty and Evan Almighty. And that may be a bit bias on my behalf because I think he's a great actor anyway. But why do we even consider God in a human form? Well, simply so we can form our relationship with this invisible force that we cannot easily conceptualize or imagine otherwise. And we need to conceptualize things in our own individual, unique way, because that's what helps us to form our bond, our individual religion, as it were, our personal connection to whatever God is. And we have to remember that religion means reconnection. So we're always trying to find that reconnection. So how did the story of us having a single God even come about? Well, it started around 4,000 years ago with a guy called Abraham, or Abram, as he was actually called at the time. And he was a prophet in the Old Testament. And one day he's there and he starts to hear a message saying, "No, follow me. I will make you and all your descendants great and cover the face of the planet." And there's a story that comes from the Talmud, which is a collection of commentaries of the Old Testament, where Abraham, he was working at his father's shop, and his father sold idols. So at that time, people believed in multiple gods. And one day, when his father was out somewhere, Abraham was there working away, and he thought, okay, I want to really accept the idea of a single supreme God. And so he actually smashed all the idols that were there. All the idols that were there in the shop, he just broke. And so from there, he was trying to uphold this view of a single God. And this story of trying to propagate the idea of a single God moved on from Abraham to his child. So Abraham was father of Isaac, the one who he almost sacrificed. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was later called Israel, and his children and descendants spread these ideas of a single God everywhere they went, because their children became what's known as the 12 tribes of Israel. And these tribes included those who went to Egypt during a great famine. And for hundreds of years, all these people there in Egypt tried to keep their religion, tried to keep this idea of a single God, but were obviously influenced by the multiple gods the Egyptians were worshipping. And when we think about that, we then have to skip to this guy, Moses. So going forward a few hundred years, by the time we get to Moses, we have this group of people who have formed an identity, but have lost that original concept of a single God that Abraham was trying to bring to them. So Moses, while he was exiled, he was living as a shepherd, and he came across what we can see as a physical representation of this single God. It was a flaming bush. Fire, heat, light. And these things, these are elements of formation, as we can use heat to create things, but also they're symbols of destruction, because obviously fire can burn. And so this flaming bush, this energy, announces that it is God. And when Moses asks, "What name do you have?" it says, "I am what I am." And this is obviously the same God which then helps Moses to free the people from Egypt. And when they reach Mount Sinai, there's this great mediumistic event where the commandments are pronounced by God. And in order to get everyone's attention, because it was 600,000 people who were on their way with Moses at the time, and that was about possibly 10% of the whole global population going on this exodus. And so to get their attention, it says that the mountains were shaking and there was thunder and lightning. And it was proclaimed, I, the eternal, am your God. You shall have no other gods but me. So the same God that communicated with Abraham, now 500-600 years or so later, is trying to tell everyone, look, I am your God. You shouldn't worship any other gods. And it's important to emphasize this bit here of I, the eternal, am your God. Because over the years, this has actually been incorrectly translated to be I am the Lord your God. Because in the original text of the Old Testament, there isn't any gender. There's no actual gender in there. And it's only later through, for example, the Psalms of King David, that we get to see any kind of reference of Lord or Father. And so again, this gender is mainly used as the nature of language rather than trying to personify God. So let's now think about the names that we give to God. So within Judaism and Islam specifically, it is generally regarded to avoid misrepresenting God. So it's there as part of the Ten Commandments that you should not take the name of God in vain. And so you shouldn't misrepresent God, and you should also try to avoid personifying God. And that's why the most symbolic references in these two religions are the names that are attributed to God. So within Arabic and Hebrew, the languages of these religions, the root word for God as a deity is actually El or Ella. Is El or Ella. And many of the names of God in these religions actually have that as part of the name. And if we think about it, El, we actually use that a lot in names nowadays. So names such as Daniel, Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, Michelle, all these with that core word of El in them have some relation to God. And so here's some of the examples from these two religions as to the names they give to God. So within Islam, we have names such as the Holy, the Sovereign, the Ever-Forgiving, the Merciful, the Light. In Judaism, got Truth, Creator, Sovereign, Healer, Almighty, Shepherd, Rock, Infinite. And you'll notice that I didn't mention the Hebrew name yet. Because in Islam, the name is Allah. And there are actually 99 attributed names to Allah in Islam. In Judaism, there are 72 names of God. But the actual name for God in Judaism is a bit more complicated. So in Hebrew, the name of God is written as these 4 letters, which more or less come out as how it's written on the screen. And the pronunciation of that has actually been lost in time because of this commandment of to not take God's name in vain. So a barrier rule was created to help protect the name of God, to help prevent any misrepresentation of God. But we know that from some surviving Aramaic and Greek documents, Aramaic is an older form of Hebrew, we believe that it should have been pronounced as Yahweh. But there are other groups from around the 1500s who believed it should have been pronounced as Yahweh. And that is what created a name that's used primarily in Christianity, which is Yehovah or Jehovah. And so, in general, to avoid saying the wrong name within Judaism, they refer to God with normally one of these 3 names. So Adonai, which is the eternal, Elohim, the mighty, and Hashem, the name. And again, these are there to help people with their personal connection to God rather than being dogmatic itself. And what does Spiritism say about this? So, when we consider all this historical information regarding our understanding, our personal connection, the way that we honor or worship God, it's clear that we might use all of these names and symbols, images, to help us comprehend God and our relationship to God. And so it's not surprising that within Spiritism itself sees all these aspects and elements of God very much in the same way as the religions we've already talked about. Those religions which believe in a single force, a single thing, a great universal force. So within the Spirits book, there's a few slides here which I'm going to just bring some bits from the Spirits book. And the first one is actually the very first question. And this is actually a really important question. The question is, what is God? And that question is there to help us get a definition of God. And notice that Kardec is not asking who is God, but what is God? Is God a person, a creature, a being with a start and an end? And so the answer that we get from the spirits, from the high spirits, is actually quite firm on this. God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things. So straight away we get this demystification of God, trying to look at God from a scientific and philosophical perspective as a being which is, the greatest intelligence. So not actually a being, but just the greatest intelligence, an intelligence which is the root, the first cause of everything. And when they say of all things, they do mean all things, everything. And this marries in, again, really well to some of those views that we saw a moment ago. Question 5 in the Spirits book helps us to understand our basic inner feelings regarding this intelligence. All human beings have within them the intuitive sentiment of God's existence. What can we conclude from this? And they say that God exists. Otherwise, where would such a sentiment come from if it were not based on something real? This is an application of the principle that there is no effect without a cause. So the Spirit's here trying to get us to understand that we all have some kind of feeling regarding God, or regarding a greater intelligence, or something that drives the universe, and that there must be a cause for the effects of everything that we see around us. And we have to put a name to that cause. And the name that we put to that, simply, is God. In question 13, we have this regarding the attributes of God. When we state that God is eternal, infinite, immutable, immaterial, one, all-powerful, and supremely just and good, don't we have a complete idea of God's attributes? And their answer, from your own point of view, yes. Because you believe that in so stating them, therefore have named all of them. But nonetheless, you should understand that there are things that transcend the intelligence of the most intelligent people. Things your language cannot define, because language is limited to your ideas and sensations. So we now get this idea that because of human language, the ideas and sensations we have as humans, it's not necessarily possible. It's not necessarily possible to fully comprehend God. But because of our human nature, we want to form bonds and relationship to God, or whatever else we want to call this supreme intelligence. And that could well be one reason why we've wanted to find a way to personify all of this, so we can create that bond, that connection. Because we always want to know if we can ever understand everything there is in nature, everything about God. And within the first 2 chapters of the Spirit's book, there are multiple questions, many, many questions asking similar things. So I've summarized them into this question of my own. Can humans fully understand divinity, God, nature's secrets, the mysteries of life? And these are the various answers that they come up with. When their spirits are no longer eclipsed by matter, and when they have finally purified themselves. That's when we might be able to. They also say that human beings comprehend them better. So all these things that we're asking, we can comprehend these things better as we progressively overcome matter. The veil is lifted as we become more and more purified, and that on earth, God does not allow everything to be revealed to them, to us. So can we understand all these things? Well, once we're more purified, once we've been able to overcome the state of things, of how we are. But we have to remember that on this planet, on Earth, as it says, we will not be able to understand everything. We won't have everything revealed to us. Question 509. So I'm just going to look at the answer of this one, and these are actually questions which I think might help us get a better view regarding our relationship to God. So in 509, we have this part of the answer. God does not require of a spirit more than what its nature and the degree at which it has arrived will allow. So we only get the kinds of tasks and trials that we are able to work with, that we are able to cope with. 619. Has God provided all humans the means of knowing God's law? All may know about it, but not all understand it. All will understand it someday, because progress must be made. Progress as in our moral evolution, our spiritual moral evolution, which we use reincarnation as a way to understand things. From one incarnation to the next, we get to learn bit by bit and grow a bit more each time. 621. Where is God's law written? In the conscience. So we have within us all the innate aspects of God's law. But what is God's law? Well, question 822 actually sums that up a little bit. So since all people are equal before God's law, shouldn't they also be equal before human law? This is the first principle of justice. Do not do unto others what you would not want them to do unto you. So last time that I was here with you guys, I talked about the golden rule. And that is one of the main bits about God's law. How we work with each other, how we care about each other. And all that is within our conscience. So, no, how can we understand God? Well, God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things. Everything that happens, that has happened, that will happen, has been sparked by God. That's question 1 of the Spirit's book. All the images and attributes that we have around us are actually here to help with our connection to God. Because it isn't easy for us to conceptualize something that is invisible. We all have inner sentiments regarding this intelligence. Even those who reject the ideas of God believe in something. And as we see from the Spirit's book, God, we should consider not as a who, but a what. So God is more of a label than an actual name. But of course, we can give God whatever name we feel comfortable with. because we have to have that comfort. We have to have comfort in order to form our relationship to God, our own personal religion, our reconnection. And as the spirits tell us, we will understand the laws of God and God's justice much better in the future, because we're just not necessarily ready to understand it just yet. So, as such, we don't really need to fear God, because there are many people who do fear God. We do not need to be afraid to say that we cannot understand God, because many people do not understand God. But also, we shouldn't be stigmatized if we say that we do understand God, because we have this free will, we have this freedom to form our own connection. So we don't need to have this fear of having a connection or not, of believing or not. Now, like I said, this is more of a stepping stone rather than anything in depth, because I was hoping that this talk would be a way to help open up conversations about God, maybe within your homes, within spiritist groups, social circles. And so I wanted just to leave things which may help to get you thinking and potentially get you wanting to pick up the Spirits book in order to study it a bit more, to find out more about what Kardec and the spirits, the high spirits who brought these answers to Kardec, what they wanted us to understand from within the light of Spiritism itself. But before I finish, I wanted to leave you with a short clip from the film Evan Almighty, which for me helps. No, it's good to sum up our relationship with God. So I'm just going to try and share that now. So if you excuse me for just one moment while I try to bring this up. And there we go. And we'll just ask Steven to include that. So hopefully this will work. And hopefully the volume isn't too loud, but please take a moment just to consider what's being said here.
Oh, excuse me. Can I get a refill, please?
Coming right up. Excuse me. Are you all right?
Yeah. No, it's a long story.
Well, I like stories. I'm considered a bit of a storyteller myself.
My husband, you heard of New York's Noah?
The guy who's building the ark.
That's him.
I love that story. Noah in the ark. You know, a lot of people miss the point of that story. They think it's about God's wrath and anger. They love it when God gets angry.
What is the story about then, the Ark?
Well, I think it's a love story about believing in each other. You know, the animals showed up in pairs. They stood by each other, side by side, just like Noah and his family. Everybody entered the ark side by side.
But my husband says God told him to do it. What do you do with that?
Sounds like an opportunity. Let me ask you something. If someone prays with patience, you think God gives them patience? Or does he give them the opportunity to be patient? If they prayed for courage, does God give them courage, or does he give them opportunities to be courageous? If someone prayed for the family to be closer, do you think God zaps them with warm, fuzzy feelings? Or does he give them opportunities to love each other? Well, I gotta run. A lot of people to serve. Enjoy.
Yep. So I found that really, quite deep, especially for a comedy film. Here we have the character of God, and if you saw on his name tag, it actually says Almighty. that we're all here side by side, that we're all here to take care of each other, to to love one another, to be there for each other. That God isn't necessarily going to be there to give us everything we want whenever we want it, but perhaps the abilities that we need, the courage we need, the faith we need to overcome the different situations we're in. And so that understanding helps us with our understanding of God, of what God is, of how God can be applied to us and how we can relate to God. So thank you. I hope that this was a useful little talk. And if you want to contact us, please get in contact with the Kardec Group. Follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. Please go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have weekly meetings every Saturday morning at 10 a.m., Wednesday evenings at 6:30 p.m. So thank you. Back to you, Stephen.
My friend, what you say? That movie, that part is my favorite part. I love that.
I know it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
The first one, Bruce Almighty, is a good film, but when it came to Evan Almighty, I think there's some deeper things about our connections in there, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. Like here, Daniela Paixão, I love this part, the movie, especially about patience. Yeah.
Yes.
It is. It is. So I think we spent too much time figuring out who is God instead of finding God inside of ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because what is it that Spiritism teaches us? Teaches us that, we are created from this supreme intelligence. It's a supreme intelligence. It's not a person. It's not this figure on a cloud. So even though we have the religious text, the religious books, we obviously have the Old Testament, because we have to remember that's from the line of where Spiritism has come from. It tells us, God created man from the earth, from the dust of the earth.
Yeah.
But that's all figurative. We know that actually it is quite scientifically correct as well. But it's figurative for us to be able to form that bond, that connection to whatever it is that has created us.
Exactly. And I love the way you did all the chronological, the comparisons. So, man, you did a great job. So I'm here. I'm like Daniela. I'm speechless.
Well, it's in my blood. This is one of the things of growing up here in the UK, in the part of the UK where I'm from, where you're surrounded by people from every religion.
Yeah, exactly.
Cultures. And so, I went to school with people from almost all faiths and religions. And so you get to know them and you get to see there's nothing to be afraid of. And there's so many things in common, which we're told. Otherwise, there isn't anything in common. Each religion likes to tell us, no, well, we're completely different. We're the correct ones. One religion says, no, we're the correct religion. If you don't follow us, then you're wrong. Mm-hmm. Another one will say, no, well, if you don't follow us, then you're wrong.
Yeah.
So who are you supposed to follow? Which religion?
Exactly. Well, which one? Hey, please decide because I need to enter the queue. No, like you reach also Chicago. Thank you, Don. Thank you very much. And Val gave her contribution here. God gave us opportunities to learn what we need and develop what we need to improve ourselves and have a happier future. Val, I will write this sentence in my wall here because we need to. This is need to be read every single minute, every single day.
Yeah.
Sometimes we win, sometimes we won't. But that's the beauty of life.
Exactly. That's the great thing about life, is that we're here and we have these challenges that we shouldn't be afraid to go through. Of course, it's not nice to go through negative things.
Yeah.
But this is a great thing that I've learned from Spiritism, that everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. Not just the good things, but the bad things as well. They're here for us to learn from, for us to improve. And that, in connection with our personal understanding of God, especially through the Spirit's book, helps us to understand why these things might happen and how we can improve ourselves going forward.
Exactly. And at the same time, we need to stop when something bad happens to us. We need to stop to find out the reason, and we need to concentrate our efforts on the solution.
Absolutely.
That's one of the main things. So when something bad happens to us, especially for those who are spiritists, they always want to find out a reason for the suffering in past events.
Yeah.
But they don't look who they are today, what they have done today, how they treat the other, how they behave. Is not because you give a soup, you give a blanket, you are the greatest person.
Exactly. And as we just saw from that extract of the film, many people think that God will come along and sort out everything for us.
Yeah.
No, we will be given opportunities to find our own solution, whether that's having the faith and courage we need to face something negative, or maybe someone will come along our pathway who will then help us with something. We never know.
Yeah. I don't recall by heart what is the correct answer in the Spirit's book, but Kardec, one of the questions he asked the spirits, the answer was how much love, how much of you put on an effort you are doing. This is what counts.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you are making a huge thing, but you're just doing this because I need to be showing up very good to the society. Instead, when you do the small things, but when you do with everything you have, in terms of feelings, in terms of love, in terms of heart. When you do it, this is called progress.
Absolutely. And one of the keys to progress is inner reflection and humility.
Yeah.
Now, we have to be able to be honest with ourselves as to, are we really doing the best we can? Are we really taking the opportunities we have to learn correctly about ourselves, to apply everything that we've learned to better ourselves? Or are we throwing things under the carpet, brushing them away, and running away from our responsibilities of life and our responsibilities of improvement?
Someday we need to remove the carpet. Yeah. Someday we will remove the carpet.
There's going to be a lot of mess under there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It will. So Adam, again, I'm speechless. Thank you very much for
it's a pleasure.
Your effort in preparing this for us, preparing this for our life. We try very hard to do our lives in English, inviting different people, try to show to everyone how it is that not just the Irish Spiritist movement, but the international Spirit movement. And we do have such wonderful lives, wonderful speeches in Portuguese, but we have just few in English.
Yeah.
And and today it was all the efforts we have done so far with this kind of presentation. It's the cherry on the top of the cake. So thank you very much. And would you mind to do the final prayer?
Absolutely. No, that's not a problem. It'd be a pleasure.
Thank you.
Let's just ask everyone who's joining us now just to make themselves relaxed. Take this moment to ignore any distractions around you so that we can connect within ourselves to find that spark of God within us. Find that connection that we need, that connection that we have all the time. And for us to be able to raise our thoughts to our mentors, to our guides, to our great spiritual friends who are always around us. And for us to ask that they can bring to us, to our friends, to our family, to all those we care about, the courage, the faith, the peace and understanding that we need for all the challenges we have in life, for everything that we go through in life, so we can learn how to better ourselves, how to grow from everything that's gone on, all the challenges and trials we've gone through. So we can learn about humility, forgiveness, resignation, and learn about charity, patience, and love. And so with positive, loving thoughts, we ask that great vibrations of peace, of harmony, of faith can flow around this planet to all those who need, to all our friends within the Spiritist movement, in the UK, in Ireland, and around the world. And to take this opportunity now to also send positive thoughts to our great friend, Geraldo Franco, who at this moment is going through some necessities and is asking for our thoughts. So let's send to him and to everyone else who may be in need, for them to receive the support that they can get from the medical benefactors, from all the great spiritual guides who are there to help us be strong and healthy, so all of us can overcome any health issues that we have and go through the recuperations that we need. So we ask that our mentors, our guides, can help us. All of us here on the physical and the spiritual planes of life, can help us with our inspiration, our intuition, our patience, and our faith, now and always. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam, again. So very inspiring, and I hope this video, it's on our YouTube. You're gonna put in your YouTube as channel as well. Yep. So may these inspire a lot of people, because it's what we have to do now. We need to stick with the basics and do it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, my friends from the USA. Thank you, friends from England, to United Kingdom, from Ireland, from Brazil, From Italy, we do have here. From Spain, thank you very much for your time. I hope to see you next Thursday, and we will have our friend Charles Kemp. He's gonna share his moments with us. So, Adam, warm hug for you. Thank you. I'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will see you see you on Thursday. Thank you.